What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. We got a fun show laid out for everyone today. But before we jump into it, before you head over to the Braves-Mets Game 3, it's going to be a sweep, it sounds like. Make sure to share today's video because a good little measuring tool, a good measuring stick to know real Falcons fans are those that tune in for the offseason, right? Anyone can be a fair weather fan during the regular season. But if you are ride or die with this team, 12 months of the year, share this video to a friend, a family member, to Twitter, Facebook, whatever, wherever, and that way we can get a good sense of where the real fans are at. Now, let's jump into the first segment of today's show, which is all about trading for Chase Young. So a report came out that the Commanders are listening to offers for the former number 2 overall pick out of Ohio State, and I think Atlanta would be an interested party to potentially get a very highly ranked player coming out of college for way less than what it cost to get him initially, the second overall pick in the draft. So good old Dov was, I guess, the first one to really not break this story, but to follow up on it recently. He tweeted out, update, the Commanders are open to listen. What does that even mean? Open to listening. To trade offers about former second overall pick defensive end Chase Young. So some background information here. The Commanders did not pick up Chase Young's fifth-year option, and like Dov just indicated, Washington is open to all offers, I suppose, for the former second overall pick. Now, he really emerged on the scene. Rookie season, defensive rookie of the year. However, since then, an ACL tear has limited Young to just 12 games over the past 2 seasons and only a sack and a half in that 2-year stretch. Personally, despite what I just said about not being super great the last 2 seasons, I'm all in on trading for Chase Young. I think you can get this player who is a very, very highly touted player for way less than what it initially cost. And for Atlanta, I know you guys are going to get a little tired of me beating this drum once again. And I don't really have as big of an issue with the current defensive line or the pass rushing unit for 2023, but there is no long-term piece here. Am I wrong? Like, outside of Grady Jarrett, who's great, but his primary job is not to rush the passer. David Onyemata, 3-year contract. You can get out of that after 1 or 2 if things aren't looking great. Calais Campbell, 1-year deal. So you do not have a permanent fixture on this defensive line from an outside linebacker's perspective that can rush the passer for years to come. And Chase Young very well may be that player, right? A franchise defensive end, in my opinion, is the biggest need for this Falcons team. When they were picking top 10 in the draft, who did we talk about so much? Tyree Wilson, right? Jalen Carter slipping to them potentially. Ultimately, they went with Bijan Robinson, who I don't dislike the pick. I don't hate the pick. He's going to be this team's all-time leading rusher. He's going to go down as the greatest running back in Falcons history. But that does not change the fact that they still need an answer at defensive end, pass rusher, edge rusher, whatever, for long term. And Chase Young could be that guy, and it won't cost you as much as it cost Washington to initially land him. When you look at Young's career, his rookie season, 7.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. But unfortunately, the last 2 seasons, injuries have really limited him. The ACL tear and the recovery did not go as smooth as Washington would have hoped. There was some buzz up in Landover about the rehab not going as planned and maybe Chase Young not doing everything he could have done to get back on the field. I didn't say that, but I also said that. So take that what you will, and that might drive the cost down a little bit, or it could have teams a bit skeptical to trade for him. Now, what do you guys think? Do you think the Falcons should trade for Chase Young? T for trade or P for pass? If you just look at the numbers the last 2 years, it's hard to vouch to give up. Not a first for Chase Young. I wouldn't do that at this point anymore. Heck, a third and like a fourth. I mean, that's probably not enough, but you could be getting an all-time steal, right? You could be getting the former defensive rookie of the year from 3 seasons ago who's back to 100% healthy, and poof, you've got your best edge rusher for the next 10 years, and it didn't cost you a first-round pick. That would be an all-time heist by Terry Fontenot. Now, Sports Talk ATL chimed in on this, and this is what they said. First off, Young has severely underperformed his lofty draft status. Limited to just 12 games over the past 2 seasons, he's not exactly the picture-perfect example of durable. Moreover, he only recorded one and a half sacks over that span. He's a freak athlete and an insane talent, but he just hasn't been able to put it all together. Now, I'm not going to disagree with the notion of hesitancy behind pulling off a blockbuster trade for Young because it's going to cost you some skin in the game. It's not going to be a couple day 3 picks going over. If it costs a first rounder, otherwise Washington hangs up, then I think you let them hang up. You don't pursue a trade that takes away a first round pick for someone who has only played 12 games the last 2 years. But at some point, I think we can all agree. There is a certain pick that's just worth the flyer, right? If it's a 7th rounder, all 31 other teams do that. And as we work our way down from 7th rounder to 1st, at some point we can draw a line in the sand and go, this is where I am comfortable going. That's as far as I would like to go. For me, a 2nd rounder. Like, look at Atlanta's previous 2nd round picks the last couple of years. How many of those guys lived up to the potential of round 2 status? Chase Young might be a bit of a bust, but if he's not, you are getting a 10-plus sack player. Like, that is his ceiling. He is going to be an NFL defensive candidate of the year for years to come if he's able to return to the status he was in Columbus. So if I had to take a stab at it, what about Chase Young for a 3rd? Probably have to kick in an extra pick or 2. But if Washington knows they're moving on from Chase Young because maybe they're not in love with his character, they have already inked Deron Payne to a big contract, Montez Sweat is playing on his 5th-year option, Jonathan Allen's got a lot of money, there's only so much money to go around. Maybe they decide this is just not a player we see long-term. And if they want to get something for him, a day 2 pick's not bad. I'm sure Commanders fans would be upset they did not get more, but Young is worth a flyer. Like, if it doesn't work out, okay. You didn't give up that much for him. But if it does work out, this is going to go down as one of those Herschel Walker, Brett Favre, John Elway trades where people look back and go, whoa, what an all-time heist. After 3 seasons, Washington punted on him because he had an ACL tear, and the Falcons only got him for a 3rd-round pick, and he ended up being the team's all-time sack leader. Yeah, it's got that type of ceiling, and if it blows up in your face and it doesn't work out, it's a 3rd-round pick. We can move on. We can live. So, Terry, everyone else leave the video for a moment. Terry Fontenot, let's talk one-on-one. Let's make a deal. Let's get this done. Let's get Chase Young down to Atlanta. Again, the reward outweighs the risk. It is worth it, in my opinion. As long as it does not cost you a 1st rounder, if the Commanders are looking for a king's ransom, fine. Hang up the phone, move on. We can make do with this unit for 2023, even if it's not going to be anything long-term 2024. We can save that for next year's draft. But if you can get Chase Young for a day 2 pick, it is worth it, in my opinion. Now, never miss anything related to your Atlanta Falcons when you are subscribed. We are less than 500 subs away from reaching 13,000. Our goal is to get there by the time training camp kicks off next month. Help us reach our goal by clicking that subscribe button for absolutely nothing. Now, it's not quite nothing, but still a pretty good deal, is the Falcons 2-shirt combo. 40% off. We know it's already hot down in ATL. Get your Falcons 2-shirt combo when you go to chatsports.com/ATL shirt combo. I've already put that link in the comments and the description. Scroll on down, click on it, 40% off, and you have 2 Falcon shirts coming to your door. Now, switching gears here, let's talk about a different edge rusher, a homegrown talent potential, Zach Harrison. Speaking of 3rd-round picks. CBS Sports identified a couple of breakout rookies, if you will, rookies to watch. Can't break out as a rookie. And they had Zach Harrison as someone who could have a large role in 2023. This is what the fine folks at CBS Sports had to say. Harrison is legitimately sized like Myles Garrett. In fact, he's longer, which seems not humanly possible. Anyway, there's some Garrett-Tishian pass rush moves to Harrison's game, and despite his tall, bulky frame, he can actually bend the corner. I don't know about that last part. Believe me, Harrison joins a revamped Falcons defensive line that has some veteran pieces but is still in need of a consistent outside rusher. He'll actually learn plenty from Bud Dupree. Because of his length and speed to power conversion, Harrison will be a reliable disruptor around the corner for the Falcons in 2023. Now, he definitely has a lot of the intangibles you look for. He's 36 and a quarter inch arm length, 6'5" and 274 pounds. Those are things that cannot be taught and no coach can do. But He's got some promise, no doubt about that. I'm going to push back a little bit on the whole speed element. If you go back and look at his 3-cone drill, which is a good metric that teams use to figure out just how bendy a defensive end is or an edge rusher to dip and get around a left or right tackle, he did not excel at that spot during the combine. But I think the most damning thing right now in Zach Harrison and why he was a 3rd-round pick and maybe not a 2nd or even a late 1st was the production level was not there at Ohio State. 8 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. Now, the good news is, if you are Ryan Nielsen, you've got one heck of a canvas to mold here because you do have a player who's got freak athleticism in terms of his size and strength and a little bit of speed. It's just got to all come together for him to be a consistent pass rusher. On the defensive line, like we looked at earlier, you have some really good players. Grady Jarrett led this team in sacks. I'm sure he would love to pass that baton on to someone who can go get 10-plus sacks. I don't know if Zach Harrison's ever going to quite get to that number, but Harrison being good would be massive for this team. One, it would allow all of you to go dunk on me in the comment section because I have been very skeptical of this pass rushing unit all offseason long, and this would prove me wrong in a big way. But also, if you're hitting on 3rd-round picks, you can let those 1st and 2nd-round picks turn loose, and now you've got a really complete roster in a really bad division, and all of a sudden Atlanta is looking at a home playoff game if they can run away with it thanks to contributors coming from the draft like Clark Phillips or Zach Harrison, who maybe didn't have huge expectations in year 1, but if Clark Phillips can take care of the slot, and Zach Harrison can be a 6-sack player his rookie season, and that's a pretty high bar for him, this team is going to do some things that most people are not expecting them to do. So let me know, will Zach Harrison pan out in the NFL? Is he going to end up being a contributor to Atlanta, or is he going to be another player that's just name a random Falcon 5 years from now and it's, oh yeah, that 3rd-round pick who wasn't here after his rookie contract? I hope he can be someone that's a long-term piece for the Falcons. I have my concerns with the bendiness and the speed and the lack of production, but the size is Myles Garrett freakish level. So if Ryan Nielsen can mold and carve him to become a great edge rusher, this is going to be one of those drafts we look back on and go, how did Zach Harrison fall to round 3? Like, riddle me that. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see everyone later.